I'm Emma Morris, and I'm a consultant clinical psychologist here at the Centre, where I lead a multidisciplinary team which specialises in developing and delivering therapy for parents in conflict. I'm also the policy and practice advisor on parental conflict here at the National Centre for Family Hubs. So briefly, for anyone who's joining us today for the first time, the National Centre for Family Hubs is an online resource hub and learning network, which has been funded by the Department for Education and is being led by the Anna Freud Centre to support the development of family hubs. We hope that some of you were able to join our launch event last month, but for anyone who wasn't able to join or who would like access to recordings of breakout sessions that they weren't able to join on the day, recordings of all the sessions are now available on our website, and you should be able to see a link to that website on the chat now. The launch event kicked off a rolling programme of learning events that the National Centre will be hosting and that share evidence from research learning, from practice, and the experience of children and families to support local areas as they develop their family hubs approach. Today's event will be exploring how family hubs can support parent relationships and coincides with the publication of our latest module on our Family Hubs Implementation Toolkit on reducing parental conflict and family hubs. We also have events scheduled in January on Best Start for Life and family hubs, and in February on youth and family hubs. And you can book your place on these events via our website, and we'll share a link to that booking page in the chat now. You can also join our Family Hubs in Mind Learning Network to receive our newsletter, where we'll share ideas and details of future learning events and resources. Family Hubs are a way of joining up locally and bringing existing family help services together to improve access and services, connections between families, professional services and providers, and putting relationships at the heart of family help. And as such, they provide a great opportunity for addressing parental conflict. Probably most people here are aware that conflict between parents that is frequent, intense and poorly resolved puts children's mental health and long-term outcomes at risk. Virginia's going to talk more about this, but exposure and involvement to parental conflict is associated with externalizing problems such as behavioral difficulty, conduct problems, internalizing problems such as low self-esteem, depression and anxiety, cognitive and academic problems, and physical health problems, and also long-term poor outcomes such as mental health difficulties, poor academic outcomes, negative peer relationships, substance misuse, poor future relationship chances, low employability and heightened interpersonal violence. So it is essential that we address this area. We also know that parental conflict is the central mechanism through which family stress, such as economic pressure, impacts both on parenting and children's long-term outcomes. And also that there are barriers to accessing relationship support, which means that families often don't receive support early enough. But with family hubs offering whole family support, what it means is that we can address factors we know to be connected with parental conflict and offer relationship support to all families at different stages of a child's development early on. So today, we're very pleased to be joined by a brilliant lineup of speakers who will talk much more about this. To start off with, we've got Dr. Virginia Ghiara, who's Senior Research Officer at the Early Intervention Foundation, who are our evidence partner here at the National Centre for Family Hubs. And she's going to start us off by providing an overview of the evidence around the impact of parental relationship quality on child outcomes. Then we've got Patrick Myers, who's Senior Ambassador for the Reducing Parental Conflict Programme at the Department for Work and Pensions. He's going to take us through the journey of the Reducing Parental Conflict Programme from evidence to policy to practice. Then Amanda Hales, Owen, Regional Integration Lead for the Reducing Parental Conflict Programme, will introduce our local authority colleagues. We've got Katie Berry and Rachel Shern, who are Early Help Service Managers in Salford City Council. And we've got Lisa Riddle, Head of Service Early Help South, and Nicole Brownlee, Reducing Parental Conflict Lead for Cambridgeshire County Council and Peterborough City Council, who are going to share a bit about what they've been doing locally, and then going to they've been doing locally to integrate their work around reducing parental conflict into their local family hub development. So I'm going to hand over to Virginia now. Following the presentations, we'll then have about 20 minutes for questions. So please do put your questions into the Q&A as we go. We're going to do our best to get through all of the questions, but any that we don't get through today, we will collate as a list of frequently asked questions, which we'll then make available on our website. Okay, so now over to you, Virginia.
Fantastic. So in my presentation today, I will discuss the impact of parental conflict on child outcomes and how existing discussions and infrastructure around reducing parental conflict can add values to the Family Hub's development process. The Early Intervention Foundation is a What Works center and collaborates with the National Centre for Family Hubs as an evidence partner. EIF evidence work is focused on 4 main areas. We look at research studies to understand how children and young people's development is working and how children and young people's development is influenced by particular risk factors. We look at intervention to understand how effective different interventions can be and how evaluation studies can help us to understand what works. We look at local evidence of what works to support local development. And we look at what local areas need to support implementation. And this includes exploring how interventions and services are delivered, how resources are used, and workforce skills and knowledge. In this presentation, I will start discussing research and evaluation evidence, and then we'll move to a discussion on local evidence and support for implementation. Family hubs seek to offer a whole family approach with relationships at the heart of family help. We think that existing evidence on parental conflict can add value to this relationship-centered approach. We all know that conflict between parents is a normal part of relationships. However, research studies show that harmful, destructive behaviors in a relationship, which are frequent, intense, and poorly resolved, can lead to a lack of respect and a lack of resolution. And this situation puts children's mental health and long-term outcomes at risk. Before discussing what research evidence says about the impact of parental conflict, let's consider a very important distinction. Parental conflict is different from domestic abuse. When we talk about parental conflict, we consider situations where there is not an imbalance of power. Neither parent seeks to control the other, and neither parent is fearful of the other. When we talk about parental conflict, we talk about behaviors such as shouting, becoming withdrawn, or slamming doors. So there is a very important distinction between parental conflict and domestic abuse that we should take into account when reflecting on how families are experiencing parental conflict. Research evidence shows that there are several factors that can contribute to parental conflict. Economic stress, a poor home environment, and parents' unemployment can affect the mental health and well-being of each parent, as well as the interparental relationship and co-parenting. Evidence shows that children in workless families are twice as likely to experience damaging parental conflict as those where both parents are working. It's important to say that these risk factors can influence each other. For instance, mental health problems experienced by a parent can negatively affect the quality of the interparental relationship and parental conflict, and vice versa. Individual parents' risk factors, such as their mental health, and the interparental risk factors, such as the quality of the interparental relationship, can both in turn influence the home environment and parents' employment conditions. Parental conflict often impacts children through exposure to conflict. This exposure can cause the development of negative emotions and representations of family relationships, which can then impact child mental health and long-term outcomes. Parental conflict can also negatively impact children through disruptions in the parent-child relationship. Research evidence suggests that parental conflict may have more a negative impact on father-child relationship than the mother-child relationship. Fathers are more likely to respond to parental conflict by withdrawing from their own children or adopting poor parenting practices. In addition, in the case of parental separation, this can lead to reduced and inconsistent contacts between children and the non-resident parents, who are typically fathers, and this can further disrupt the father-child relationship. The overall impact on children can include problems relating to mental health and well-being, physical health and risky health behavior, academic performance, and antisocial behavior. It's worth saying that parental conflict can harm child outcomes, regardless of whether parents are together or separated, are in a same-sex or heterosexual relationship, or are biologically related to the child or not. It's also important to add that some children may be more vulnerable to parental conflict or might respond to the same level of conflict in different ways. Children of all ages can be affected by parental conflict, but younger children are more likely to blame themselves for conflict, while older children are more likely to display behavior problems. And since they are more exposed for a longer period of time to conflict, they may be more negatively affected. Research also suggests that the effects of parental conflict are equally damaging for boys and girls, but that there might be differences between boys and girls. Girls might be more likely to feel caught in the middle of conflict, internalize the conflict, or see it as a threat to the harmony of the family, while boys are more likely to see conflict as a threat to themselves and experience externalizing problems such as behavioral difficulties. There is a growing number of parenting and relationship interventions that can support parents experiencing parental conflict. At the moment, EIF has assessed 12 evidence-based interventions that are included now in our relationship spotlight set on the EIF guidebook, and 4 of them are targeting separating and separated couples. Even if interventions can vary in duration, delivery settings, and implementations, there are some key characteristics that we found in most of them. The first aspect is that intervention helps parents understand the impact parental conflict has on the children. They also build motivation to improve the quality of co-parenting and focus on stress management and problem-solving skills. They support communication skills, and most of them target families at key transition points. Families can be particularly vulnerable to stress and parental conflict at key transition points in family life. Separation might be a context where ongoing conflict might be taking place. The birth of the first child and the transition to parenthood can put strain on relationships, causing a decrease in relationship satisfaction and increase in parental conflict. Finally, children transition into school can be a stressful transition point, and children's performance at school can be negatively affected by parental conflict. Therefore, targeting a child's transition into school can be a key moment at which to intervene early and identify relationship difficulties between parents. In every local areas, there are various services and interventions that can help parents to build and maintain healthy relationships. To build an effective relationship support pathway, it's important to reflect on what are the first services that parents turn to when they are struggling with relationship conflict. What interventions are available to help parents at different transition points, and how services and interventions fit together to prevent and address parental conflict and the impact it has on children. In addition to specific interventions, there are also services that focus more broadly on supporting families and supporting the relationship between parents alongside other aspects of family life. Child and family support services such as early help, social care, and children's centers can identify and provide support to parents experiencing relationship difficulties. Health services such as GPs and health visitors are well placed to discuss how becoming a parent can affect relationships and identify families who are at risk of experiencing difficulties early and provide support. Schools can reinforce healthy relationships through the provision of relationships and sex education, having a role in identifying children and families affected by parental conflict, signposted to other services, or supporting children through school counseling initiatives. When interventions and services fit together and the support pathway is working well, a family needs to tell their story only once, and services and people then work together to give that family the support they need. Most local areas started reflecting on how to make sure interventions and services fit together as part of the Reducing Parental Conflict National Programme. And this is why we think that the existing discussions and infrastructure around reducing parental conflict can add value to the Family Hub's development process. The first step of this process is building consensus on the needs for change. The goal here is to understand how well the local context is delivering for children, young people, and families, and reach a consensus around strengths and areas for development. First of all, this means gathering local evidence based on existing sources. The planning tool for reducing parental conflict can bring important evidence, as it offers a local analysis which tells you about how well the organizational system is performing and areas for development. The process also involves a review of the available data on population needs, demographic trends, and geographical variations to better understand who is vulnerable and how. Some local areas are conducting some forms of needs assessment in relation to reducing parental conflict, and EIF published last year a step-by-step guide on how to assess population needs. The local data collection should also inform how effectively the local arrangements enable families to access help and support, how well connected local services are with each other, and in how they support families, and how far the local arrangements prioritize relationships and family strengths. Again, this is very much in line with all the discussions and around the relationship support pathway. So there are three take-home messages from this presentation. We know that parental relationships are vital to children and young people development and their success in life. Research evidence on parental conflict can add value to Family Hub's relationship-centered approach. And local evidence and existing infrastructure around parental conflict can support the Family Hub's development process. To conclude, strong and stable family relationships are the basis of a thriving society and are one of the most important factors in supporting children to thrive. Family Hubs offer a fantastic opportunity to put relationship support at the heart of the offer to families. And I hope this presentation clarified how the evidence and local infrastructure around reducing parental conflict can offer an important support to the development of Family Hubs. I'm going now to hand over to Patrick for the next presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not sure my camera's working, but hopefully it is. We shall see. Thank you very much for the invitation to come and speak with you. As mentioned, I've got a wonderful title called the Senior Ambassador, hence the chocolates at the top. It's a fantastic opportunity for me to be here to share some of the thinking that we're undertaking within the Reducing Parental Conflict programme about how we interface with the Family Hubs development, and indeed how we interface with those Family Hubs that have already in existence. And that was a great exposition of the evidence about the reason why this matters. And one of my roles very much is around sharing that knowledge and that insight and evidence, but actually also making the call to action, because after you've seen the impact that interparental conflict can have on children, there's a moral purpose behind the reason why we're undertaking the work that we do. And we at the Reducing Parental Conflict programme are delighted to be on the journey with DFE in the centre, and all those who've commenced their work on Family Hubs, making sure the connections and collaborations between us all are, and the various policy initiatives, is solid and secure, and of course effective in supporting families. Next slide, please. At the heart of Family Hubs will be communities in which they are situated. And I actually very strongly believe, and I think we're here through some of the later discussions, the role of the relational approach to thinking about how we interact in families. And sometimes we just need to shift our gaze from thinking about difficult families to thinking around families with difficulties. I'd also like to think around the role that communities can have in Family Hubs and in the work that we're trying to undertake in reducing parental conflict. And I'm reminded of a Cormac Russell quote from his book, Rekindling Democracy, where he says, "Communities are all around us, close at hand, awaiting the community building that will make the invisible assets visible in all their abundance." What an opportunity to reframe the work that will come out of these developments by being alive and aware of all the assets that can come together to make family hubs such important places. Families can come, including those where parental conflict is evident. That different gaze, I think, is a really important thing to bear in mind about how we interact with families, avoiding stigma and avoiding blame, but actually thinking that family hubs and reducing parental conflict are there to help and not to judge. Next slide, please. We've been on a journey, and I'm not going to go into length about the journey, but just give you some idea about where we've come from and where we're going. I was an assistant director in Dorset Council and Children's Services, and we were one of the pioneers of the local family offer. And that was an opportunity for local areas to invest some resource about looking around parenting support for conflicted parents in low income and disadvantaged families. And in my environment, Dorset appears to be on the surface to be a very healthy, wealthy place to be, but there are pockets of disadvantaged. And indeed, what we were able to see was that in one particular area, we had the fourth highest divorce rates in the country, and all of those above it were coastal communities as well. I'll leave that for you to speculate on what that means. We also had the evidence from the EIF and Gordon Harold, and this to me was the way in which policy should be built on evidence and insights, and it led to the policy intent very much of making children's lives better now and altering the trajectory by actually helping parents understand the impact of their conflict. What we learned from that local family offer were three things. There were 12 local authorities, and we essentially found the same things. Lack of strategic leadership, so we provided strategic leadership support, so that was changing the practice. Practitioner training to overcome the issue that we found of an unconfident workforce about asking questions about relationships. And then we knew we had a paucity of interventions that were available to low income and disadvantaged families. So we remain testing those programs, 8 programs in 31 areas. And it's this journey, I think, illustrates the way in which local evidence with academic evidence led to a policy intent, and the policy intent is about changing practice. And if family hubs and RPC are about anything, they are about changing the practice at the local level. Next slide, please. I call this slide building on and building with, and looking at the window of opportunity that there is around the collaboration between the Reducing Parental Conflict programme and family hubs. So in phase 1, I've already illustrated the way in which we've worked with 149 local authorities across the country regarding training, regarding thinking about partnership working. We've continued that into phase 2 with a workforce development grant that recognises that we still need to have capacity within the workforce, both to ask the questions and actually interact with families where conflict is in evidence. And phase 3 that we're working through at the moment, we know we have something in the spending review. The quantum of that's unknown at the moment, but it's likely to lead to specialist interventions training so that local areas are able to do something more than ask questions, but actually they can do something to support families in helping them recognise the impact that their conflict may have on their children. And I firmly believe there is a window of opportunity with us working with family hubs in order to make sure this local offer is consistent and of required quality. So some of the goals that I think we have around our work and the work of family hubs is thriving families, whatever their form. And the activity really is support, not intervention, across professionals. Intervention is quite a loaded term. I understand we use it all the time, but what we're really trying to do is walk alongside families rather than actually do things for families. And thriving families, whatever their form, I see family hubs as being the place, and Virginia alluded to it earlier, around both families that are together, families that are separating, even families that are separated, same-sex families, and those families that need additional support because of adoption or fostering arrangements. But it is very much about thinking around how we walk alongside rather than do to. We want more harmonious relationships. We all do that, all want that. And that means about having conversations. And I feel that the training that we've provided through phase 2 and phase 1 is all about actually having the confidence to have conversations and having a curious mindset. Virginia alluded to the issue about behavior. And a curious mindset is actually asking the questions, why do children behave in a particular way, rather than actually reacting to the behavior. And that curious mindset, I think, can lead to some well-meaning inquiry that avoids those issues of blame and shame and actually enables positive conversations about how things are at home and elsewhere. And to understand a person, you must understand their world. And in order to do that, I think we've got to make family hubs a place where people, families want to go, and actually adopt the art of listening well and listening deeply. We do know that often, it's been again expressed in the evidence, that there are many things that can impact on a family that actually lead towards a conflicted relationship. And we need to make sure that we understand families and parents' world in order that we can respond to that. And family hubs with their integrated model, with a range of professionals wrapped around a hub, will enable us to do that. But we also need to remember that each parent's life context is constantly changing. It's a constantly changing system unique to them. And if we want good outcomes, we need healthy systems. So connections across the hub, I think, are an ideal opportunity to be able to be flexible enough to respond to those changing systems within family lives. And families change for a variety of reasons. We've already mentioned the point about separation, and actually providing information and support through family hubs in that difficult transition to separating, I think, should be right at the heart and centre of what the offer is for families, as well as all of the other activity that we do for families that remain together. Next slide, please. Oh no, something will come up now. If we press, oh no, probably come up here. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself, as is often the case. So family hubs, the DFE have thought about 3 pillars of work in family hubs: access, connections, and relationships. And I've already mentioned that the access element of it, a place where you want to go, not always where you just need to go, but it's actually inviting, and there is direct support, signposting, and I go back to this lovely term that it's not mine, I read about it, and I think you'll see where it comes from in a moment, about walking alongside families and offering the support through that unique system as life changes and ebbs and flows. The connections, of course, are with families and frontline practitioners, but frontline practitioners to frontline practitioners. Opportunities for joint commissioning, opportunities for shared case management, and connections through the wider community like GPs and early years settings and schools. But the relationship element, I think, is fundamental. So this is within relationships, whatever their form. And I think that's important to recognise that it's not just intact families that need support, but it is separating and separated families in order that we can actually create the best environment in which children can thrive. Between families in peer support, between families and frontline practitioners, between frontline practitioners. It's all about the quality of the relationship. And of course, there are strategic relationships that we know are important in this space. And if we just press, there'll be a little something will come up, I hope. There we go. I'll read this to you. It's too small. I actually found this. I don't admit this very often, but I found this in my wife's Grazia that I was reading one evening, and it just summed up something for me. During a recent midnight scroll on Instagram, I found the perfect message. I do not crave anyone who will fix me. It read, just someone who will hold my hand while I fix myself. That's exactly what I want now. And that underpins what we're trying to do within the Reducing Parental Conflict program. In that we want to equip parents with the knowledge and opportunity to change their behaviour for the benefit of their children. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm just going to very quickly run through, I'm conscious of time, a little bit about some evaluation outputs that have come. On the intervention, we've seen an increased referral into our interventions, and primarily due, I think, to digital delivery models. We've seen an increase in fathers participating, which is very encouraging. The providers of the interventions are very positive about the content. And early indications show some programs are more appealing than others. And those are likely to be the closest to what parents might expect in terms of support around their issues of conflict. You must remember that this is a consensual program. Parents don't need to do it, but it's the collaboration and the quality of that relationship between frontline practitioners that will enable this to occur. Training, the grants enabled a wide reach in the training across the workforce, be that from social workers to early years to school staff to frontline, early years practitioners. And there has been an increase in knowledge and understanding and their abilities to engage in this issue. 6-month post-training, the majority have applied it to practice. So it goes back to that point I was making, that we need, if the policy is going to work, it needs to change practice. And the confidence in the workforce seems to have increased through training. The local integration findings, there's more local authorities with strategies. Local commissioning decisions are beginning to be aligned. And routinely, practitioners are beginning to ask parents about the quality of relationship. And there's an increase in support for parents. So in terms of our goals, I think that we've begun to see something very powerful emerging from this program, and it will be more powerful if we get further along the line with collaborating with family hubs. Last slide, please. So what about the future? I've talked about changing practice. Family hubs want to be in the mix about changing practice, so we can collaborate on that. We want to change people. We're changing people because we want to improve outcomes for children and families. Both of us are agreed on that, but equally we want to change the way in which practitioners interrelate around a variety of issues that families encounter, but we also want to change the system. And I'm reminded again of a quote by Baroness Armstrong, who said, joined up problems deserve joined up solutions. And if we can get that system to be joined up enough to make it credible for families and parents, we'll be doing a good job. My last comments are from David Bowie. Tomorrow belongs to those who can hear it coming. And I think those of you who are on this call today are probably hearing it coming in the guise of family hubs and the integration of other services that will surround the family hub. And coming together in what the future holds, we must make sure we make the most of this opportunity to work together, making children's lives better now and their futures the best that they can be. Thank you.
Okay, hello, I'm Amanda Hales-Owen and I'm seconded into the role of the Regional Integration Lead for the Reducing Parental Conflict Programme, which is often referred to as RPC. We are more commonly referred to as the RILs, and there are 6 of us in total, all seconded in from local authorities. Each of us supports the local authorities within a region, and the work that we support and our role is all about relationships. We are currently supporting 146 local authorities with their RPC workforce development grants. This may be something as small as a phone call or a Teams meeting to help evolve thinking via discussion, or it could be presenting a national update to a steering group or a partnership board. We share regular newsletters and offer communities of practice where RPC LA leads can share updates and ask questions of each other, encourage and support each other by sharing their ideas and experiences of RPC, and build their peer networks around a common theme. What I have learned from this role is that the Reducing Parental Conflict programme and the Family Hub agenda fit well together. Both work well when a collaborative approach is taken and strategic buy-in is secured. Local authorities look different, feel different, have different priorities and serve different communities throughout the country. All are at different stages of their journey with family hubs and RPC, and unique in their approach to workforce development and service planning. The golden thread that joins them all together comes from joining up local priorities and national agendas, and by understanding that although a family hub and relationship support may look different in each LA, the underlying principles and commitment to delivering relationship support via a family hub model is what offers us our shared priority. There are times when parents can experience greater levels of relationship distress. At times like this, it is important for relationship support services to be timely, flexible, and accessible. Family hubs are well placed to do this. I would now like to introduce you to Kate Berry and Rachel Shern.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for having us. I'll just wait for our presentation to pop up. Hi, so I'm Kate Berry. I'm the Early Help Service Manager in Salford, and I'll introduce my colleague Rachel.
Hello, I'm Rachel Shern. I'm the Help Locality Manager who work around
Patrick, everything you said really resonated with us actually, so I think we'll go into detail about what we're doing in Salford in relation to parental conflict. If you could just move on to the next slide, please. So a key point for us in Salford is our ambition to be a Salford family partnership, and that's key for how we deliver our early help offer for children, young people and families. And we work with families from 0 to 25. Parental conflict has been illustrated in the previous presentation, impacts on all stages of life in a family's journey. And it's really important that relationships and the relationships we build with our families in Salford are at the heart of that, to ensure that they feel confident and comfortable to connect with us when they're facing difficulties. So in order to deliver the family partnership, it requires a commitment from all our partner services to work together. And that's crucial in identifying children and families in need at the earliest possible opportunity. Because as we know, families meet a lot of professionals on their family journey, and it's about those families connecting in and identifying that need before it escalates into something that becomes even difficult for those families to identify and for professionals to support them with. If you could just move on to the next slide. The pandemic really highlighted for us in Salford what it's like for families to access support. We've got family hubs, and we've had family hubs and the concept in place in Salford for 5 years. We took the opportunity after the children's centres to look at our services and how we could reach everybody and combine the services that we had in place. So we amalgamated what were our former children's centres, our youth service provision and our partner agencies, particularly with our 0 to 19 health services, into the family hubs. And it's not just a physical building, and I think that's really important to stress. It's about how as professionals are we working in our neighbourhoods to work with families where families are accessing services. Our expectation is that not everybody will come into a family hub building, but actually we do a lot of work with families in the home, and this is where we tend to get the best response. As Patrick identified earlier, parents actually want to connect and find the help and support that they need. So we've really concentrated on our digital offer. So we have our Facebook pages, we've got web pages on our local authority page, which I can signpost you to. And we also offer parenting support online and parental conflicts, which Rachel will talk about further, about how to access that online, because not a lot of families feel comfortable speaking to professionals and they want to just access it in a way that suits them. If you could move on to the next slide. So our current picture of our family hubs in Salford are we're offering support in places in our local community for children and young people aged 0 to 25. This enables us to have an integrated delivery and co-location of services. So, for example, we've got our local authority early help teams, which are made up of early help practitioners, And they're really our frontline practitioners that really support the reducing parental conflict offer that we deliver. They're the ones that connect with the families and see them and build those relationships. And as Patrick said earlier, it's about working alongside families, not doing to families. And actually, if you are struggling and you have got conflicts, you're not just going to disclose that to anybody. So it's absolutely crucial that strong relationships are made and families are willing to engage. We also have our 0 to 19 health visiting team. So again, that links in with the Healthy Child programme, because they're seeing families at each stage of that programme, and it's about identifying that need. And as we recognise, having a baby is a really key life-changing moment, actually, and that's when parental conflict can start to emerge. So if we can get in there and support those changes, and that might have the impact then on the kind of the finances in that family home, and families might start having, you know, conflicts about things that were never there before, that children kind of build to the fore. But obviously that's taken up into the teenage years as well, which is where it's crucial that we link with our youth service, who offer universal provision through youth centres and also kind of one-to-one work. We also have schools coordinators, and again, that's key in linking in with schools and identifying families, our school readiness advisors, our area SENCOs, and our early support key workers and portage workers. And that's recognising that every family is different and the world connects with different professionals, but it's about us having an understanding of what parental conflict likes and having those, you know, on open and honest conversations. So the range of services that we deliver through our family hubs includes, as I've mentioned, antenatal and postnatal support, child health, early help, relationship support, parenting support, SEND provision, which includes our neurodevelopment pathway, and also our adult and child mental health support, including parental, mental, infant mental health. So I think it's really important to recognise that we have a universal offer and a targeted offer. So we receive referrals into our service through our bridge. So we're connected in with children's services. So it's, again, as I said, really important about identifying families, not just from a set of data, but from the relationships that practitioners are making with families. So if you could just move on to the next slide. So when reducing parental conflicts was introduced to us in Salford, we felt that we needed to approach it very differently. We knew we didn't want to do it as just an intervention that parents got as a result of engaging. We knew that we needed to have, you know, really robust conversations in order to do that. And in Salford, our relational practice model is called the family partnership model. And that provides an opportunity. It's got a helping process within it. The video that I'll show shortly will, you know, explain it from a parental sort of point of view. But the helping process, the start of it is called exploration. And it's at this point of exploration that we use the training that we've received from the Reducing Parental Conflicts, initially from the DWP, to look at how do we frame the questions that we're asking families at this point. What is their lived experience? What does it feel like living in this family? You know, where are your pressure points? What does it feel like for that child, young person? And most importantly for babies, you know, how do we capture their voice? What's it like for them? And our practitioners, our early help practitioners, are skilled in the family partnership model. That's their relational practice approach. And they use this to ask the questions that relate to that. And from this, we can identify then what would work for that family, what would be the best intervention for them. My colleague Rachel will talk about how we've structured the interventions that we can offer, but it all starts with that conversation and that engagement and that willingness to engage as well. And obviously we're not expecting parents to offload at that first session. Sometimes that, you know, the difficulties in their relationship, it's really personal to them, and it's about that practitioner building that strong relationship in order to get to, you know, a full understanding of what's going on. I think the video just demonstrates it a bit better than I've sort of explained it as well, because this is about a family's journey and how they access the family partnership model. So if you could just play that for me now, please.
I love being a parent, but sometimes it can be hard. Like mostly as a family we get through things. If we need advice we Google it, or we ask our family and friends. But recently things just got on top of us. I shared it with our health visitor that was really struggling, and she put us in touch with the Salford Early Help Service.
A worker got in touch with us over the phone. They were really polite and checked whether it was a good time to speak. Told us a little about how they work and what they would help with, then arranged to visit us at home in a time that suited us.
At the first visit, the worker told us that they wouldn't tell us what to do, but instead they'd help us to think through and celebrate what's strong about our family, and then help us to set out which things we wanted to improve on. Also, they was really straight with us and said that they wouldn't be involved forever and they'd only stay involved until we felt ready to go it alone again.
Over the next few weeks, our worker met with us and the children. The children really enjoyed the sessions as the worker made it fun for them and used words that they could understand. The sessions were really supportive and we felt we could trust our worker. We did write things down on paper, but our worker left these with us. They explained they had to write up the information when they got back to the office, as this helped them understand where they were up to with their work and helped their manager know what they were doing too.
In the sessions, they helped us to list our goals and helped us to see that trying to change everything all at once was really difficult. So they helped us to pick out and agree the goals that we wanted to start with.
There was a lot of pressure on our family with money issues, problems with our son in school and feeling a bit out of our depth as parents, particularly with caring for our new baby daughter. This was all impacting on our relationship and we were both worried about rowing in front of the kids. So that's where we started the work.
I felt really nervous about talking about our relationship, but our worker was really respectful. Was helped to identify the small things that we could try and do differently to be able to resolve things before they escalated into like big arguments. We also broke the tasks down so we both really understood what we were doing, like when and how. Was even given time to try these things out. When we met back with our worker, it felt great to say that we achieved our tasks. We didn't get it right straight away, but even then we explored together why it hadn't worked and just adjusted our plan.
The support really worked, and when our worker asked how it felt, I said we never made the time to talk before, and this has really helped us focus on our issues. It's not about blame, it's about how we can move forward as a couple. Now that things were calmer at home, we chose to tackle the issues our son was having in school. With our permission, our worker arranged a meeting at school with a class teacher and with our health visitor. Again, the meeting focused on what was strong about our family rather than just the issues we were having. School said it was really useful to know about our concerns and to understand some of our pressures at home. We came up with a plan together, with everyone doing their bit, which felt like some pressure was taken off us.
After 3 months, we didn't need to meet our worker so often. I mean, they still checked in with us and took time to look at what we'd achieved. And we did agree it was time to go it alone, but rather than just waving goodbye, a worker helped us to think through what we would do, where we would go and get help if things started to slip again.
I feel happier now because Mum and Dad aren't shouting all the time. I'm also doing better in school and my teacher is making sure I'm okay and giving me extra help.
Also, we felt that we wanted to know more about how to be good parents, so before closing, our worker arranged for us to do some online parenting. This was really good because it was something we could do together, in our own time, at our own pace. We still keep in touch with our health visitor and school because we realised talking things through and keeping each other up to date really helps. Also, we like to make sure we've got the information we need to make good choices as parents. The pressures are still there,
but we do feel more able to cope with them.
If you feel you would like some help and advice, then you can get in touch with your local Early Help Family Hub in a number of ways. Speak with your health visitor, GP or child school or nursery, and they can make a referral to us on your behalf. Alternatively, go to our website at www.salford.gov.uk, Children and Families, Early Help for Families. There, you can access some weekly groups such as Baby Social. You will also find parenting advice and information. In addition, on the website, you will find telephone details for each family hub. Simply drop us a line and someone will be able to take your details and help link you with the best service or sources of information to meet your family's needs.
Thank you for listening to that. I think that really illustrates, and that was actually from parents themselves and what they told us about their experience of the family partnership model and kind of the impact that they had. So that really is truly the voice of the family in that video. I'm going to hand over to Rachel now so she can explain the interventions and how we've linked it into the relational practice model that we have in Salford. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Could you move on to the next slide, please? Thank you. Yeah, so I mean, I would say that we have really high ambition around it, and we felt it was really important for early help to lead the way, and to win the hearts and minds of our own staff, so they felt that this work was achievable. So we made good use of that first 2 years of money to really train a wide range of people, but to really kind of support our staff. So in GM, we pulled together the GM toolkit, which really underpins how our practitioners feel confident to start a conversation with family. Could you move to the next slide, please? So we'd already got a really great model that we could reflect on from our partners in Rochdale, and we very much felt that was the right way to go. So we have kind of branded what we do, Salford Relationships Matter. We already had some existing interventions around conflict and also around DV. So we really kind of looked at that and broke it down into what we wanted to keep hold of. And then we threaded in that work around parental conflict. Kate's already kind of alluded to this, but we really, really encourage and support our staff to see that this is about having a conversation with every family they come into contact with to explore relationships. That GM toolkit really helps them to start that conversation, but with the next round of money from DWP, we felt we needed something more robust. So we have now trained early help staff to be able to signpost and support parents with the 1+1 offer, and we've also trained social care staff and school staff with that as well. But we very much want to take the lead with this because we don't want parents to be searching around looking for. We want them to have one place they can come to, and then we will ensure that they're linked to the best support on offer. Could you move on to the next slide, please? So these are the really clear messages that we give to staff, and you know it is sometimes it's difficult when staff are kind of starting to deliver a new area of work, new to everyone, so we're very much trying to normalise it. We're very much tying it to our Salford Family Partnership model, so our training and support around that aligns with our training and support around reducing parental conflict. And we give our staff very clear messages, simple messages that we want you to think about relationships from day one. So whether that family is coming into contact with one of our workers at the bridge, as that referral comes through, or whether it's with one of our early help practitioners within the team, someone will be having a conversation with that family about relationships and digging a bit deeper. And also, very much giving that message around, kind of looking at new skills and new ways of doing. Could you move on to the next slide, please? So this is the Greater Manchester Toolkit. We work really, really closely with the other authority, GM. This was, a great piece of work that was for us. The toolkit really brings together the underpinning knowledge that is being delivered through the knowledge pool training, but also the tools and sets things out. And it is about being able to kind of have a conversation that just identifies whether there's an issue and then helps that family to look at skills that can help them do things differently. But it is meant as a starter, and obviously if a family needs something more in depth or more specialist, then we manage them through that journey and make sure that they get the right support at the right time. Thank you. I'm going to hand over now to Lisa Riddle and Nicole Brownlee from Cambridgeshire.
Thank you. Okay, So thanks ever so much for inviting us to join you all today. My name's Lisa Riddle and I'm Head of Service for Early Help with Cambridgeshire County Council. And I'm joined by my colleague, Nicole Brownlee, who holds the Reducing Parental Conflict lead for both Cambridgeshire County Council and Peterborough City Council, and also our partner organisations. So over the next 15 minutes, we hope to give you an overview of our approach, not only to reducing parental conflict, but also some of our successes to date and opportunities that the programme provides as we, across Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, transition locally towards a family hubs model of delivery. Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, although separate local authorities, have many shared partners. And a couple of examples of this are the constabulary and the delivery of the Healthy Child programme locally. We also share a number of senior posts, so for example, director level and head of service level across the authorities. And this is really to help us to achieve consistency in our delivery of support and interventions to children, young people and families across the network. This autumn, both authorities secured funding from the DfE COVID Regional Recovery and Building Back Better Fund. And this money is enabling us to undertake feasibility studies to support the transition to a family hub model of delivery. Both of these studies are now underway, and the report and recommendations for our elected members and partners are due in March next year. I believe our work around reducing parental conflict will play a critical role in the study and recommendations, having been a priority for us since the programme was first launched a few years ago by the DWP. I've got some really fond personal memories of early meetings with partners in the Eastern region, where we were first hearing about reducing parental conflict, trying to comprehend exactly what it was, how it differed from domestic abuse and the impact upon children. I think it's absolutely fair to say we've come an incredibly long way in a short period of time, and that this is part of our building blocks for the future. I've also noted on this slide 2 of our key strategies across the Children and Early Help Partnership: Best Start in Life and Strong Families, Strong Communities. These strategies cover our vision and approach from pre-birth to 19. They've been co-produced with families and all of our partners locally. In the context of family hubs, these strategies, related plans and shared outcome frameworks provide the backdrop to how we deliver services locally. They also articulate for us our local response to the question, why change, as we develop towards a family hub model of delivery. An additional output of these strategies is a shift in strategic oversight of linked agendas, with a move of the thematic lead for reducing parental conflict, the Supporting Families programmes and family hubs all now sitting with a single head of service. Next slide, please. So on the previous slide, I mentioned some early meetings about reducing parental conflict, which for our local authorities stemmed from being invited by Hertfordshire to join one of the initial contract package areas. Nicole will touch on this area of work in a while. When the opportunity arose for us to apply to the DWP strategic grant, we chose to use the money to fund a full-time reducing parental conflict lead officer. And Nicole undertook this role for almost a year as a secondment from her permanent post within Early Help. I think it's fair to say that Nicole's hard work and determination for the passion got us to where we are today. As we introduced the programme locally, we decided to ask the Shared Domestic Abuse and Sexual Violence Board to provide governance to the programme and help us raise awareness. This early buy-in from our DA colleagues was an invaluable source of support and another key in helping us to achieve early successes. What we hope to share with you is how this approach supports the 3 delivery areas of family hubs: access, connection and relationship. Next slide, please, and I'll hand over to Nicole.
As Lisa's already mentioned, the strategic grant was used for my secondment to lead on the programme across Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. Using the panelling tool, we were able to identify a number of priorities that we wanted to focus on initially. The first area for us was around raising awareness. In the first 6 months, I attended over 50 events to promote the programme, both the training offer and the interventions. In addition to our social care and early help colleagues, I also met with teams from health, which included social care, school nursing, CAMH, emotional health and wellbeing services, and the health visiting teams. We also met with colleagues from probation, police, voluntary sectors, housing and education, both schools and settings. It was critical that the programme was being highlighted to as many partners as possible. I spent time working within the integrated front door, giving me the opportunity to speak with colleagues from the Early Help Hub, the Missing from Homes teams and the multi-agency safeguarding teams. In addition, I attended a number of referral and allocation meetings to ensure that partners understood the referral process and the criteria. During these initial meetings, we identified a number of champions from different agencies. This enabled us to ensure that all updates were quickly shared across the partnership and that professionals had a local contact that they could speak to when questions arose. The next area we were really keen to focus on was our workforce development. Using our training grant, we were able to secure over 20 face-to-face sessions in a 9-month period, and these were offered to all partners across both authorities. We felt it was really important to ensure that practitioners and partners have a good understanding of the difference between parental conflict and domestic abuse and how to start to have those conversations with parents. We were really fortunate to be part of the Eastern Region contract package area called the Parenting Together Support Programme, and we were able to refer parents to one of 4 pilot interventions which were delivered from Tavistock Relations. Working as part of the steering group was invaluable and allowed us to access support from colleagues from other local authorities and from the Department for Work and Pensions regional integration leads, gaining ideas and working together to really promote the programme. At this time, we're in the process of changing our case recording system to Liquid Logic, incorporating the Early Help module Partner Access. Capturing the data and outcomes was an area we were really keen to invest in at an early stage, and we immediately started discussions with developers and partner agencies about how this could be delivered. At all times, the information was being shared in lots of places, including on the Parenting Together website, across the local authority social media sites, and in regular newsletter updates. Next slide, please. Okay, so for phase 2, when phase 2 was announced, we spent considerable amount of time looking at different options, really hoping that the offer that we chose to go with would be sustainable. We were successful in our bid and we were awarded additional funding from the Department for Work and Pensions in the summer of 2021. Following a procurement process, the contract was awarded to 1+1 to deliver training to 420 individuals, 12 train the trainers, and also to provide access to a range of digital interventions for parents to access. We started a promotional campaign to highlight the new offer in September 2021 with the rollout of the first 2 training courses fully booked 2 weeks later. We're currently working alongside colleagues from our Education Directorate to develop a workshop for parents to access in a group setting using those digital resources that we have available from 1+1 with a start date commencing April 2022. During this time, a decision was made to move the governance of the programme from the Domestic Abuse Sexual Violence Board to the Early Help Governance Board, as this in turn will feed up into the integrated care system, allowing us to strengthen the work across partners. In addition, oversight of the work will be transferring to the Supporting Families Central team for both local authorities from January 2022. This means that a single head of service will have strategic oversight for reducing parental conflict, supporting families, and our transition towards a family hub model of delivery. Next slide, please. During phase 1, we delivered training to 420 practitioners from a wide range of partner agencies, including education, early help, social care, probation, police, health, IDFAs, the Department for Work and Pension, and some interpreters. Due to COVID, we had to adapt our delivery and we designed a new offer to allow professionals to receive a mixture of e-learning and bite-sized sessions. These sessions were designed and delivered by staff from our workforce development team who had attended the initial Train the Trainer, and to date a further 350 professionals have accessed this offer. Having attended the training, practitioners and partners felt more confident in being able to recognise the difference between domestic abuse and parental conflict. It's also supported them with the language to be able to discuss support and interventions with families, which in turn increased our referrals to the programme. Since 2019, 408 parents have been referred to the Parenting Together interventions that have been delivered by Tavistock Relations. Our education safeguarding trainer has attended both the Train the Trainer courses and now includes parental conflict awareness in all training delivered to education settings across both authorities. Since September 2021, 1+1 have delivered sessions to 200 individuals across the partnership, with a further 230 planned for 2022. This has equipped the attendees with new digital resources that they can use in their work with families. In addition to this, licenses have been made available for parents to access either independently or with a lead professional if they're receiving support. Next slide, please. So, as referenced in one of the earlier slides, one of the areas that we were really keen to focus on in the early days was how we could capture the information within our case recording system and ultimately evidence the outcomes and the impact of our work. Here is a screenshot of Cambridgeshire data from April to November 2021, which shows that 203, 4.9% of the early help assessments completed in this period identified parental conflict as a presenting need. This shows that needs identified at the point of assessment. We know that it is likely to be higher as we get to know the families. On the graph, I'm not sure if you can quite see, but on the graph, parental conflict is the 18th highest need identified out of 50 presenting needs that we look at our assessments. We were also keen to break down the data to identify areas where the needs are high or low. The report that we've run shows that parental conflict was identified as a need in a number of assessments completed in City, Huntingdonshire and South Cambridgeshire. It also helped to show us that from the report, we were led to believe that Fenland is underrepresented in the data, and therefore it's an area that we've arranged additional training and awareness events for both local authority staff and partner agencies. Next slide, please. So it wouldn't go without showing some feedback. We've received a lot of positive feedback about the programme from our partners and colleagues and families, which I won't read out fully now, but I'd just really like to highlight the feedback from one parent who accessed an intervention earlier this year. The family have received a lot of support from both early help and social care with really little sustainable change. A family worker was reassigned again to work with this family, and they discussed the course with the parent and she agreed to attend. The focus was on her relationship with her ex-partner and how this was really impacting the children and making such a difference to their futures and their current situation. Mum agreed to attend, and she has described it as being one of the best things that she's ever done for her family. Following this intervention, early help have now closed and there have been no further referrals from the family to the support. In addition, practitioners and partners have reported greater confidence in having conversations with parents around their relationships, in particular with fathers. Understanding the impact of unmanaged conflict for children in the long term has empowered professionals to intervene in a supportive way and to start those conversations with parents. It's something that we're really keen on in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. We really want all professionals that come into contact with families to consider parental conflict as part of their assessment. Look to see if conflict is there and treat it as the norm. In the same way that when we're completing assessments, we do around substance misuse, domestic abuse and any health needs, whether that be physical or mental health needs that are presenting, we want this to be standardised across all our assessments. And I'll pass back to Lisa.
Thanks, Nicole. Could I have the last slide, please? Thank you. Okay, so as you've heard, our work to embed reducing parental conflict across the local area in strategy, workforce development and practice has helped us to significantly increase awareness and the importance of working together to identify and respond to the quality of relationships. As we progress towards Family Hub's model of delivery, there's already a golden thread running through our approach to supporting families and improving relationship quality. We hope to build on this further in the months and years ahead, keeping our partnership up to date with local and national developments, ensuring families help us to shape what comes next, enhancing awareness of the importance of good quality relationships in our communities, and developing our methods of capturing and evaluating what works locally. For Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, we've seen the real difference work in this area has made, and know that we have all of the foundations in place to continue to build on our strengths through Family Hub delivery. Thank you for listening today. I do recognise that many areas nationally will also be in the process of transitioning to a Family Hubs model, so I hope that this has been useful in terms of how reducing parental conflict can play a critical role in our approaches to the work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and to everybody who's spoken this morning. It's been absolutely fantastic to listen to all the different messages that have come through on your presentations. Great to hear from Virginia, that really comprehensive overview of the evidence, really justifying a real need to address parental conflict, but also the evidence to support the need to focus on relationships and to focus on providing support throughout, support pathways throughout a child's development, which obviously is a really neat fit with Family Hubs. Great to hear from Patrick about the fantastic work the RPC programme has done in terms of translating that need into policy and impacting on practice at a local level, and thinking about how this can continue through the Family Hubs model, through the pillars of access, connection and relationships. And I think that work really came to life then through the next presentations that we saw. I have to say in the Q&A, Patrick, there's a lot of love for your quotes, a lot of positive comments about them, so thank you. They obviously hit a mark. So yeah, Kate and Rachel from Salford did a brilliant job in terms of helping us understand how they've managed to provide the type of help that families actually want. For example, by thinking about delivering in neighbourhoods and homes and their digital offer. And thinking about how they're sharing with us how they've managed to embed their learning from the RCP programme in their workforce development and their delivery across the key points in children and young people's development and across the different types of support and services, the different types of provision. And thank you so much for sharing your family partnership model with us. I'm sure that there are a lot of people here who will have found that really helpful. And thanks so much to Lisa and Nicole. I imagine that there are a lot of people in this webinar today who, like you say, are at an early stage in terms of setting up Family Hubs and want to learn more. So it's great to hear about your journey in this early stages of establishing Family Hubs. Great to hear about the kind of process of scoping and that key lead role that the lead reducing parental conflict, their lead role in building partnerships and networks, and how that formed the foundation for your provision, your offer, but also your workforce development plan. I can hear from your presentation that kind of want to increase awareness and really the visibility of parental conflict and embed it as part of standard practice, as other key points have been for a very long time, such as parental mental health. And it's really interesting to hear about your work to embed the capturing of information around parental conflict and outcomes by embedding it in the systems that you're using around data collection. And also in terms of thinking about where it sits in terms of governments and that move to early help, how that helps you in that aim of increasing awareness and visibility of parental conflict. Also great to hear about how you provide information of your offer, and it's also always so nice to hear it come to life a little bit when we hear quotes from practitioners and from parents and children and young people about how this work has impacted on them. So thank you so much to all the presenters. for me, listening, I think it's just really inspirational. So I've worked with parental conflict for a lot of years now, and we have various different projects that we run here out of the centre. One of the projects that we run out of the centre is for families who are in incredibly entrenched long-term conflict through the family courts, 5-7 years. And the damage that's been done to the child as a result of this is really heartbreaking. And so often in that part of our team, we just wish we'd got there earlier. We wish we'd been able to get this family the support that they needed earlier on. And everything I hear about the Reducing Parental Conflict Fund, and then how that links into family hubs, and how family hubs can really build on that work and take it forwards and make it stronger, makes me feel hopeful that we will see less families like that. Because I think a lot of the time, the reason we see those families is because they haven't been able to access the help that they needed earlier on, whether that's through availability, not being available frontline, issues of accessibility, or stigma or shame, or the kind of lack of joined up thinking around services, and one person focusing on a child's behaviour problems and another person focusing on the financial support, and then the missing of the need to focus on the thing that might be affecting the child directly, about the need to address the parental conflict. And what I hear about family hubs and the work being done around that, building on the RPC programme, makes me really hopeful that we'll see changes there. Okay, so we've got some questions that have come in on the Q&A. Thanks so much for them. Feel free to add more. The first question that comes through is for Patrick, which is, has there been any engagement with the Ministry of Justice about the development of family hubs alongside the reform programmes in the family courts? The themes of access, connection and relationships are all very relevant to the reform programme too. So it would be great to understand more about the interface between family hubs and families involved in private and or public family court proceedings. Thanks, Patrick.
It's a great question and very relevant to some of the points that I was trying to make through my presentation. There have been cross-government conversations that have included MOJ, and at the moment the reform programme, through what I understand is the Pathfinders in Bournemouth and North Wales, are focused on the in-court process. But we have to find ways of, as you've said, Emma, about finding or providing information to families much earlier in order that they can understand the alternatives that there are to actually going to court. And I see a great opportunity whereby family hubs can be seen as places for information and support around separating families. What we need is a join up between the in-court space and the out-court space, so we are able to manage to help parents who are separating separate well. Your point is well made. I know of cases which have gone on for 7-8 years, which can have no benefit for the child, and all it reveals is the unresolved parental conflict or emotional conflict that goes alongside separation. So, and that is the business of RPC. In many of our interventions, we've worked with separating and separated families to improve their relationship with good outcomes. And I hope it will be the business of family hubs. And as your point, we need to make sure access is easy and desired. So that points around MOJ, yeah, they're connected, but their reform programme is very much focused on in-court processes, but joining up with the family hub model, so parents can connect with services that might help them, and where it's appropriate to walk alongside parents so they can act in the interest of their child and not just their emotions. So I see it as a perfect marriage. Sorry, that's the wrong thing to say when I'm talking about separating families, but it's the perfect blending of an opportunity to make children's lives better. And after all, we want parents to get on, whether they're together or separated, so that children's lives are really, really protected. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Patrick. Yeah, that's great. So we've got another question here for Patrick and our local authority panelists. There's been a large focus on parents, their relationships, training, support, etc. There's been little on the support for young people when their parents are in conflict, and especially their input to a family from their perspective when the family are separating. I don't know if anybody wants to come back on that.
Come back from a Salford perspective, if that's any help. So I think it's safe to say that in Salford we'd had an offer around family conflict, which very much focused on people prior to this work around parental conflict, and we very much use that NSPC toolkit to really help explore that with a young person and open up that dialogue with their family. I wonder whether that is something going forward that needs to kind of be added on, threaded through, because, you know, once you've dealt with the parental conflict, there often a lot of feeling from the children's point of view that needs to be dealt with, and I wonder whether that's the next place to go with it.
Yeah, Rachel, I think that's a really good point. And what the point that you make in terms of order, I think is quite important as well, because I think certainly a dynamic that is different here with parental conflict is the risk of children becoming triangulated and they're becoming the focus of their parental conflict, and the loyalty conflicts that come from that, which can be as emotionally harmful as being exposed to the conflict themselves. And certainly the young people that we see say very, very clearly that they want their parents to sort this out, and they don't want to feel responsible for this anymore. So I think our offer around supporting children and young people has to be very sensitive to the risk of children being placing more emotional strain on children by asking them essentially to side with one parent or another. What do you think? I.e., do you agree with mum and dad? So that dynamic of triangulation has to be really carefully thought about in our offer to children and young people. Lisa, were you going to come in with something?
Yeah, unless Patrick was about to.
Yeah, only a quick mention about Join Up, and it is really important. I use that Baroness Armstrong quote, but actually the mental health support teams, which I know, Anna Freud, you train some of these practitioners, need to be aware of the impact of parental conflict on children and young people, and be prepared to sort of think wider than necessarily what's going on in the child, but what's going on in the child's context, in order that they're addressed. And I think there's a perfect opportunity to join up that mental health work that's going on in schools, and the evidence around parental conflict. Sorry, Lisa, I'll stop now.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Patrick. Sorry, go on, Lisa.
No, I was just going to say, I think this is where for us the Join Up comes with the National Supporting Families programme as well, and operating whole family approaches. So for many of these situations, we will see that there's an early help assessment in place which incorporates the needs of the whole family, and then specifics or areas of a team around the family plan that can locate those services or support that's needed for a young person, maybe as an individual within that family environment as well, and bringing in those mental health services.
That's great. Thank you, Lisa. All right, I'm going to ask one more question before we wrap up. This is a question, thoughts from Virginia. Is there any learning from the EIF, the Early Intervention Foundation, support pathway mapping work and local authorities? Sorry, here's the actual question. It seems to me to effectively reduce parental conflict, collaborative working between universal services already supporting families at times of stress, health visitors, jobs and benefits, personnel, and RPC interventions are essential. Yes. How does the RPC programme create and nurture this relationship, particularly when universal services are under pressure and potentially see this as discretionary?
Yes, thank you, Emma. I think this is a very important question, and this is something that we are trying to target at the moment while working on the support pathway. So it's definitely key to consider not only specific targeted interventions offering relationship support, but also all the other services that can support families through different transition points that might impact on parental conflict. So it can be challenging, and I think what we are trying to do with the EIF support pathway tool is to promote discussions and initial conversations to understand how different services and interventions can fit together. So just mapping what you have in a local area, thinking about how different services can work together in the best way, and whether there is any gaps in the provision, in the offer you have at the local level, can be a first step. And then from that work, you can think about how to really integrate what you have from the different services. So we have at the moment a beta version of the tool we are working on. And in this tool, you can see that we are trying to map some of the key services and interventions that you can have at the local level to support families. It's not a comprehensive map, but it can help to understand how you can try to identify some of the services you can have at the local level that can support families. And we also included some of the key characteristics that you can identify from these services and interventions. And this can help you also reflect on what you're developing locally. So if you have, for instance, particular interventions you're developing, what are the key characteristics that might help to support families in the best way?
Thanks, Virginia. Okay, well, we're going to wrap up now. We're coming up to 11 o'clock. But any questions that haven't been answered, you will find addressed on our website in the frequently asked questions. I just wanted to say thank you to all our speakers for a really interesting session and for taking the time, those of you who've joined us today, and for sharing your questions. Please do head over to the website to have a look at the Reducing Parental Conflict and Family Hubs module of our implementation toolkit. You can book a place on our upcoming learning events via our website. The Best Start for Life and Family Hubs event will be taking place on the 19th of January, and the Youth and Family Hubs event will be taking place on the 10th of February. We're also co-hosting with colleagues in the City of Westminster a series of community of practice gatherings for those leading the development of family hubs in London local authorities. So if that's you, please do join us for one of these by signing up via our website. There'll be an opportunity to visit a family hub, and first session is happening on Tuesday, and that may be of particular interest to local authorities who are putting together applications for transformation funding. And sign up to our Family Hubs in Mind Learning Network. On that, you can receive a newsletter where we will share details of future events and resources. So thanks again, everybody, for joining, and hope to see you again soon.